This is my winter daily classic car, and I think it's possibly the coolest daily driver I have ever owned. This is a Citroen CX GTI 2.5 non-turbo, and this is filled with all the weird stuff that makes Citroën some very interesting cars. I got this car last year. It's been off the road since 2007, I think it was. And yeah, it was a proper Barnfind. Hello and welcome back to Seaside Garage. This is a Citroen CX GTI. There we go. It's going up. At least the front end is going up. But it's not looking that bad. It's actually looking pretty decent. There's something hanging down over there, but it looks to be one of the better projects so far, at least. But the biggest problem on the exterior, in my opinion, so far, is a new theme of this channel, because I got a couple of cars with this. The other one standing behind the building got the same, but rusty roofs. I am a car enthusiast. I don't think a lot of you are surprised about that. But cars from the 80s and the 90s are what I'm most interested in, because those years, and especially the 80s, were a time where car manufacturers dared to do stuff a little differently from time to time. And Citroën really was one of those who pushed the envelope a lot in that regard. Car manufacturers doesn't seem to take a lot of chances nowadays, but back in the 80s and before, and into the early 90s at least, Citroën still did stuff very differently. And especially the Citroen CX is got a lot of gimmicks that are different from what you are used to, at least. Just take a look at the interior, for instance. There are no column stalks or anything. We got the indicator buttons up here, which seems weird at first, but look at this. I need to turn right now. I just press the button right there. And because there is no column stalk, it's not able to self-cancel, so you will have to do that. No problem either, because it's just where my fingers are. It's very cleverly designed, in my opinion. Of course, you could argue that the lack of self-cancellating indicators is weird. It is just part of being up here, because there is nothing mechanically to disengage the indicator, and that's how stuff was done back then. If you did this system nowadays, it would most likely just self-cancel electronically instead, and it would be very clever, actually. And the cool things about this is that you got a much better view of your instrument cluster. There's nothing that is obstructing it, because you don't have this spoke up here. So the view on your gauges is very clear, which is nice. Also because there is a lot of warning lights in the Citroën that from time to time lights up, and it can be a good thing to actually see them in time. But when I got this car, of course, there was a lot of rust and other issues. It hasn't been running for many years. It was able to start and drive under its own power. So normally on my channel, stuff hasn't been turned on for 10 plus years, but this one was actually running decently. It actually sounded pretty well. So the first look of this car wasn't as frightening as it could be. But of course there was rust in the car. But to be honest, this car got close to 400,000 kilometers on the clock. It's not been in Denmark its entire life, but it's been here enough so that rust becomes an issue. So it took a while to fix all the rust. This is unbelievable. It is mint. Oh, there's a little bit of rust right there at the drain hole. But other than that, it's really good. There is a hole right there, and I don't think there is supposed to be a hole there, so I think we have some reconstruction to do in that area. Then we got a little bit of rust right there. Not too bad though. Then on this side we have a pretty bad spot right there. But I'm actually looking forward to fixing, or trying to fix that, because it's going to be interesting. It is dry. There is surface rust over there, but it is. I can't punch any holes, and that is pretty nice. Whoops. Oh. Another interesting thing about the CX is the Diravi steering. This got power steering. Many cars got power steering, but this got true power steering. There is actually nothing mechanically connecting my steering wheel with the actual tires, unless that the hydraulic system fails. Then there is a fail-safe that kicks in and makes it very difficult to turn the car, but it is possible to turn. So if it fails, it's not the end of the world. So it's very different to drive with. One thing is you don't get any feedback from the actual road. That takes some getting used to, because normally I really use the feedback a lot. So you have to know when you have, for instance, if you drive off the tarmac, you will normally feel it in your steering wheel. You don't in a Citroen CX, but you will feel it in the car. You will have to communicate with the car a little bit different than you usually do. But it's very comfortable to not feel all the bumps and all that in the steering wheel. But it does take some time to get used to this steering thing, because one thing is, right now the wheels are pointing straight out. If I turn it like this, we are at full lock, which is not a lot, so you don't have to do a lot of turning of the actual wheel to turn around. But the other thing is that when you let go, it will self-censor like that. It's a pretty cool gimmick. But it does take some time to get used to, because normally in a corner like this, in a normal car, would just let go of the steering wheel and it would sort of slowly straighten up. But in this one, if you let go in a corner like this, it will just point straight out very quickly. And it takes some time to get used to, because you're not going to let go of the steering wheel in a CX like you do in a normal car. You will always feed it back slowly, or have a little bit of resistance in your fingers when you spin it. But of course, all that rust had to be fixed, and especially the roof was a challenge, to say the least. It's not perfect, and it's not supposed to be, because I don't do that kind of stuff. But I'm pretty happy with the result, because I think I have learned so much from fixing that roof rust. That's for sure. How cool is that? It's 89. It's not special with a sliding electric sunroof, but it is a Citroen and it works. That's special. I gotta stop using the safety squint, because it's not really working. This is the result that I'm currently at. I still need to grind the welds flat. And not only that, I won't be finished after doing that. And it will need a lot of filler. It's gonna be like this, I think. But do take a look at this. It fits pretty nice, and if I put it on top, it fits the curvatures right. I'm gonna continue on welding this in, and then take you back when it's all done. This is the end result after a lot of filler and sanding. To be honest, I think I should use maybe 3 or 4 times more time on doing that than I have actually done, because there is a lot of imperfections still that could be fixed with more filler, more sanding. But I'm struggling with my patience when it comes to this part of the job. I like the welding, I like the fabrication of the metal work. The filler and the sanding, not so much. The suspension is another interesting thing in the CX because, yeah, it's the famous Citroen suspension that is very soft, very comfortable, and is adjustable while you drive. Right now we're going to drive through a big puddle, so I'm just going to raise the car up, not into the highest, but just the second highest. The car starts by lowering itself. I'm not sure it's supposed to do that, but mine are doing that. But then after a while it will start to go up, making the car very high, and then I can go through the puddle without having to worry about a cracked exhaust or something like that. And then when we get through it, I can just lower it down again. It is not very comfortable up there though, and you're not supposed to drive it in high settings. Actually, the high settings is meant for servicing, but the suspension on a CX is very comfortable. I have never driven a CX myself before, and I have a feeling that this is harder than it's supposed to be, even though it is a GTI, and the GTI is harder than normal cars or normal CXs. It is also a little bit, but the spheres are very old, but still, it's very comfortable. The interior of this car was also very, very moldy, so I had a good clean out of that. I stripped the entire interior also to do some rust repairs and cleaned everything up, and it came into life pretty amazingly, especially considering the high amount of kilometers that this car got. It's a very nice interior still. But the suspension really makes it a nice cruiser. It is not sporty, it's not fast in corners, but it's very comfortable, and it's almost like the faster you drive, the better suspension you actually get. So you can drive over bumps quite quickly without it being unpleasant. That's really nice. So that, in that regard, this car is actually a little bit faster than a sporty hot hatch on normal roads, because you have so many potholes, and at least these days in my country the roads are pretty rough, and it's not very pleasant to hit a bump when your car is set up hard and poised. But in a CX it will just consume those bumps very, very nicely. Another very, very cool part about this suspension is that in case of a puncture, not only can you actually drive on 3 wheels, I'm not going to demonstrate that today, but if you need to change your wheels, you don't have to use a jack. You can actually just use some blocks of something, but all you have to do is to put it into high, and then put something underneath the jacking point. There is a jack for that. I'm going to put that in. And with that in place, all I have to do is to put it into low. And then it's possible to take off the wheel. But first time this car got a little bit hot, I got a bit of a scare because the oil light started to light up. Remember when I did the engine assessment video and didn't really test the oil pressure because I thought it's most likely just fine. It turns out that I have an oil pressure issue on this one. After a bit of research and a small talk with a guy who knows a lot about these Citroens, he told me that in his experience 10W40 oil is too thin for this engine. The oil pressure problem went away with a thicker grade oil. Classic oil, 20W50 classic mineral oil with a lot of zinc in it, seems to have done the trick on the engine. Now the light doesn't turn on, the engine seems to be fine. But lucky for me, it turned out that thicker oil would fix that problem. Of course it won't fix the problem, but it will give it enough thickness to actually have high pressure. Another thing that really takes some time to get used to in a Citroen is the braking system, because normally you have a master cylinder that you physically pump with your feet. Mostly it's vacuum assisted also, but on a Citroen it's actually just a valve that taps into the hydraulic pressure tank, and by that you get braking force, so you don't have to use a lot of pressure, and that takes some time to get used to because it's almost like having a push button brake pedal, and it's really effective, really, as you can see. I don't think it brakes better than other cars, but the fact that you have to put so little effort into braking hard, it makes it really nice. Take a look at this. That's effective braking. You could maybe hear that it's slid a little bit, but this car got ABS system, and you can just push the brake as hard as you want, and it will just figure it out. And I have been driving this car in snow for quite a bit, and it's really, really nice in the slippery stuff. I'm actually very impressed about the snow driving capabilities of this car. And the ABS system it's an old system, but it's really effective. But of course those brakes needed an overhaul, and I did a rebuild of the calipers and so on. Ah, there we go. That was easy. I'm gonna loop them and install them. There we go. That was one. There we go. Loop it. Slide it in. There we go. So now I got the coil part of it fixed. Then I just need to measure how long it needs to be and make the flares like before. There we go. I created a new rear brake line. I have not bended it into shape back here just now because it's very difficult to get it in and out. So I will do that while I put it in there. I also removed this bracket from the old brake line and put it onto this one with a rivet. So I'm going to refit this. So as mentioned, the interior is quite different on a CX comparing it to most other cars. Up here we got, as mentioned, the indicator. This out here is high beam, low beam. Down here we got the light switch. Over here we got washer and windscreen wiper, and also the speeds down here. We got the horn right here, and yeah, and also the key down there. Everything is slightly different. This car is a bit special because it got air conditioning, which is not normal for cars in my country. It doesn't really seem to work, and I don't really like it either, so it doesn't matter. It got snow generators, and ever since I got this car, we have had a lot of snow. Could be because of this. And then a very dirty radio in a very weird location. But when I got this car, it tended to go quite hot. We got a temperature gauge up here. It will most likely show quite high if I put it in ignition because it's standing still. 91 degrees. It climbed to 120 when I got this car. I tried flushing the system and changing the radiator. I have a feeling that there is absolutely no flow in that radiator because there's really not a lot coming out. It's a tight fit, but easier than on an XM. Rusty water. And it seemed to do the trick, but at the first couple of drives I actually had a hard time getting any heat out of this. Almost no heat was coming out of it. I could feel it, but not a lot. It turned out there was some plastic bags in the ducting. I got them out. But still, I just had a hard time getting heat, and then at one drive it started to lose heat, and I pretty much knew what was going to happen. The temperature was climbing really quickly, but I got it through the MOT, and the day after this happened. This is a blown head gasket for sure. Whoop. Now, I am not normally a detailing channel. I am not much into good looks. Well, I am, but I don't necessarily think that a shiny, nice restored car is better looking than an old and worn car, because I really like to see the years and the usage of cars. I don't really enjoy showroom condition cars. I'm much more into cars that has lived a life and continue to do so. But I pretty early on realized that even though this car was really sad looking in the paint department, that there was actually quite a lot to get back of the old shine on that paint. I just polished a little bit one time and realized that it actually looked pretty decent. So I tried my best to polish the entire car, and I could have done a lot better because I'm not very patient at that kind of stuff. But the result is pretty awesome, especially when you look at the before and after. Yes. Oh yeah. So this awesome car is now my daily driver, and it's actually started to be a little bit reliable. The first few weeks was horrible. I had so many issues, but now it's actually going pretty well. I realized that the spare radiator that I put in is also leaking, so I actually got a brand new one on its way, because it's just annoying to have to fill in coolant every now and then, so I would like to fix that. The washer pump just failed yesterday, so I can't use windscreen washer. That needs to be fixed also, but it's small stuff. All in all, it is actually pretty reliable at the moment. And I'm enjoying this car so much. I'm not hugely impressed by the fuel consumption on this. It's pretty bad. I found out pretty quickly that I had a fuel leak when the fuel tank is completely filled. I have fixed that now. It was the gasket on the center unit that was perished. I did a bit of a hack job and used some epoxy to seal it up, but now it's sealed. But I'm not getting more than just about 9 to 10 kilometers on a liter, which is to be expected apparently from this engine. I was just expecting a little bit more, to be honest, because CX is short for drag coefficient, just in French, because this car got a very low drag coefficient. It's very slippery, but it doesn't really translate into the fuel consumption, at least not with this engine. But I think it's important to say that this car was supposed to have a more modern engine, but due to financially tough times at Citroën, they ended up using the old DS engine with some upgrades. That's the story I heard, at least. It's a very old school engine. Remember, this is an 89 car, but still it's a pushrod engine. Yeah, it's old school. But other than that, I'm really enjoying this car. So this video was just a compilation of all the work that I have done so far on this car. Underneath in the description, I will leave a link to the playlist where you can watch all the videos in full length. And don't worry, I'm pretty sure that playlist will become longer because there's more stuff I want to fix on this car, and there is most likely more stuff that wants to break on this car. So stay tuned for more. I'm going to let you enjoy the ride, because just over this crest comes the dam between this small island and the bigger one, Funen, and it's a pretty amazing spot, to be honest. Even Red Bull drove over here once in a F1 car because they made some kind of commercial, but it's pretty nice. Take a look.